Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us at the next Empowering Every Voice webinar series. Thank you for joining us again. I'm going to turn everything over to Cheryl Hamilton, our Associate Vice Chancellor for Student Life, Opportunity Programs, and Student Advocate.
Thank you so much, Jennifer, and good afternoon, everyone. It's so great to see you. I have the honor and privilege today of introducing my student success colleague and our presenter for the day, Klarisse Torriente. Klarisse oversees the higher ed and prison reentry research and implementation of reentry supports. She is the SUNY Higher Education in Prison Reentry Coordinator. Klarisse is a seasoned higher education professional. She's a graduate of the Center for Women in Government's Fellowship Program through Rockefeller College at the University at Albany. Klarisse has a Bachelor of Science in Forensic Sociology. What a unique field. From Rosemont College, and her master's in social work from the University at Albany. I can't wait to hear all that Klarisse has to share about her work in supporting the reentry student population. Klarisse, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Cheryl, and thank you so much, Jennifer. I'm so grateful for this opportunity to share with you all today and this afternoon, specifically about folks who are currently and formerly incarcerated. So we're going to focus on the latter group of humans, but I'll interweave some of the college and prison work as well into the presentation. So right now, actually, we're going to kick off with a little video. It's very short, don't worry. That is from a recent and historical graduation at at Riverview Correctional Facility via SUNY Potsdam. So we just had a recent graduation last year of a cohort of students who were the first SUNY students in quite some time, at least under my knowledge, to be awarded bachelor's degrees who are currently incarcerated.
We all have something in common, we're all trying to strive to do better and achieve something. Because this is a big achievement for all of us, but we would have never had this opportunity in the streets. Many of us wouldn't have, but it's a big achievement, and after 30-something years in prison, it's like, I feel like I achieved a lot and I'm still standing on my feet.
But the most important part is like the compassion, the desire to see somebody grow to reach a certain level, bring themselves, to a place where they want to be. It just gives me the opportunity to help others, because that's important. It's not just about me. It's about helping others too.
So these beads were given to me for being an honor student, for putting in the work, a lot of hard work and dedication. And after all of these years of working, finally graduated.
Thank you. I still get really emotional watching that video, even though I've seen it probably 100 times. Just a quick note, I've been involved in this work for next year. It'll be about 10 years of my life in various capacities. But right now I do serve, as Cheryl aforementioned, as Assistant Director for Reentry and Special Projects for our Office of Higher Education and Prison here at SUNY System Admin. I also currently serve as an adjunct professor for Columbia Greene County Community College at Greene Correctional Facility, where I promptly will leave today at 3 to go teach this evening. But why higher education in prison? Okay. The ripples of education don't stop with the rock casted into the water. They spread like the most fruitful weed, touching everyone who encounters the educated human. This goes for everyone in life, and is the reason why we are fervent believers of higher education for all. Most of my students and the students who are currently incarcerated around the state did not have the best or most resourced primary and secondary school experiences. It is not because they aren't or weren't capable, but most of our students grew up in spaces and places that could not and did not nurture their educational growth. Instead, thwart it. Poverty, racism, violent communities, lack of familial support. I have students who are put in special ed classes that write better than me. It begs the question, what happened here? But our students are here now. So I just wanted to quickly share also, as you could see on this screen, Chancellor King did attend a graduation and has been attending quite a few ever since his tenure here at SUNY. So we're very, very grateful for his unwavering support. And I also just wanted to share really quickly that I worked at SUNY here for 6 years, and I actually met Chancellor King way before his time here. I actually met him when he was Secretary of Education for Obama, heading the Second Chance Pell Pilot Initiative. I met him at Sing Sing Correctional Facility in Ossining, New York, which is a facility that was a part of the first round of Second Chance Pell experiment, the pilot program that brought back the Pell access for our currently incarcerated students. Just want to share a quick history. So in 1994, President Clinton came down with the Criminal Justice Omnibus Bill. Within that omnibus bill was a stipulation that rescinded access to Pell Grants for those who are currently incarcerated. So prior to 1994, across the country, there were college and prison programs. And after 94, seemingly most of them just shut down overnight. With the access to the public funding, it made institutions very hard to afford to keep providing this education to the currently incarcerated population. And for many years, it was the small private foundations or actually small private institutions, colleges that were affording this opportunity to currently incarcerated New Yorkers and Americans. As you see here, the Chancellor talks about good policy. And although I don't like to use criminal justice, markers and data points to what's the word? To qualify higher education, because we wouldn't use that in our world either. I just wanted to note that folks who have access to these programs are 48% less likely to recidivate. And when I say recidivate, recidivism is how we measure folks' rate to return to incarceration. And as y'all may know or may not know, the United States of America has one of the highest recidivism rates in the world. So our people across the country are more likely to return to incarceration than other comparable countries and economies. So really quickly or not, whether we know it or not, and rightfully so, many faculty and staff would not know of, currently or formerly incarcerated students on campus because the system banned the box back in 2018. So talk about when campuses used to ask the question, it definitely thwarted applications from folks who had this experience. But now that we don't, we are seeing an uptick of folks who do have this experience who will be on campuses. So while the United States represents about 4.2% of the world's population, it again houses around 20% of the world's currently incarcerated population. And I just want to make it clear that 95% of incarcerated humans will return to home. They will return to communities across the state. And for most of my life, it was a common conception to think that within our New York community, most humans incarcerated would be returning to the city. And that just is not the case. If you look at these two charts that I have, and I want this to be clear that this information is from 2020, you could see that folks are returning to also outside and north of New York City and downstates. You see the county of Albany, the county of Erie, Onondaga, Monroe. And yes, I know that's the Rochester, that's the Syracuse, that's here where I am in Albany. But they're also returning to places that are in rural areas as well. And we don't want to overthink of those that are currently incarcerated or formerly incarcerated to just be specific to urban areas. And as I talk about reentry further, we're going to discuss how, the rural reentry experience differs immensely from the urban reentry experience. So education over assumption. Our society's dialogue around those who are incarcerated and formerly incarcerated can be pretty monolithic. We think of, SVU or Orange is the New Black. And I ask that we may educate ourselves on the experience of incarceration, who is incarcerated, and what it's like to be incarcerated. I linked a PBS documentary series that highlights the experiences of currently incarcerated college students from the Barred Prison Initiative. Now, if you have Amazon Prime, that is included in your package. So most of us do. I also should not be saying this, but if you look on the YouTube, you also might find something there too. Okay. So our campuses have comparable roles to support specific populations as well. Non-traditional learners, first-generation students, folks with disabilities, veterans, etc. In a perfect world, ideally, there would be a program on campus to support the individual needs of formerly incarcerated students. So there is a consistent, compassionate, and empathetic voice navigating important relationships with campus departments and external partners. Now, I know the realities of budgets and the lack of support. Oops, sorry. I just want to make sure that and the lack of support. I teach myself for a community college, and I'm a social worker. So as we reach for the stars, we need to be aware and land on the clouds that actually support us. Small gains lead to big change. At the bare minimum, there should be someone on campus who can be a touch point for formerly incarcerated students. Our office is also currently in the process of hiring an additional reentry support human who will be helping us identify faculty or staff on each of the 64 campuses who could lead this role. That person who would be helping our formerly incarcerated students, their office, their contact should be accessible to students via orientation, student handbooks, campus resource lists, and signs around campus, for example. This information should be public. I know that we might, I don't want to say inadvertently, but I know that we may ad hocly have these individuals already in place, but we need to make it sure that the campus population is aware. And also, our office is always here to support these efforts. We are in the process, again, of like what I said, of hiring a reentry project coordinator to work side by side with me to meet students before they are released to determine their academic needs and life needs. One of my pipe dreams is identifying, like I aforementioned, but also training and paying and supporting these identified faculty or staff on individuals on each individual campus. Think about developing affinity groups and amplifying student voices and experiences with their consent. Also think about, again, you can connect with our office, something that we'll readily provide and love to organize our panels across campuses, viewings of the documentary I mentioned before. Also, our office is working on our own documentary to highlight the beautiful work that is done around the state inside correctional facilities and also in the community. A great deal of our campuses have been very creative with very little resources, often enough, leveraging resources that already exist in the communities and on campus to provide support for our students who are coming home from prison. So you don't always have to be the all for one person or for anyone. Like I said before, and I'll say again, identifying community-based resources to partner and work with, connect students with these resources. And also the beautiful resources that we have on campus, the food pantries, the homeless liaisons, child care centers, the SNAP benefit coordinators, counseling, etc. Check out also, I have throughout this presentation, and I know that we're going to share it, I have linked several resources within. I know you see up here the education over assumption. We also have a blog series that highlights student voices, students who have come through incarceration, had access to a SUNY or a college and prison program in general, and where they are in life now. And at the end of this, I also, for our workforce development humans on campuses, I did include a licensing guide that really educates and informs and empowers both staff and students to know what careers are viable for them. Okay, so now we're going to talk about unique needs of those who are formerly incarcerated or have incarceration experiences. So first, I'm going to talk very, very clearly about digital literacy and technology access. Think about how much technology changes and how long it may take you to adjust to even an application updating. This was a recent problem for me, or new iOS if you're an Apple user. It is difficult. Imagine being removed from technology for 5 years. 5 years ago, we weren't Zooming like this, and TikTok did not exist on the level that it does now. Imagine 10 years now. Imagine 15 years. Imagine 20. The human that was in the currently incarcerated person who was in that video earlier had done 30 years in prison. The further we go back, the more support is needed. Educate students on latest technology, and also please utilize the Attain Labs around the state. I am not just a fervent believer, but the biggest cheerleader for Attain Labs. We're working on starting to develop workshops either at the EOC centers or at these Attain Labs, so that when students are coming out of incarceration, that we can directly connect them with these digital literacy labs across the state. Okay. And also other community-based resources to serve students who are in need of digital literacy. It might not be the Attain Labs in your community, but often libraries have similar and comparable programming. So be creative in terms of technology access too. When I'm saying technology access, I'm thinking about the computers that we're using to communicate right now, or tablets, or Google Chromebooks. Does your campus provide loaner laptops to students, or have old equipment it doesn't use? This is something as well that our office is working on, so that we can have a more systemic and equitable, means to fill this gap in terms of technology access. But I also ask campuses to be creative as well in the interim. Link students to these resources. And again, when in doubt, reach out. That's why we are here. Now, for the rest of my explanation about the unique needs of this population, I'm going to be that very, very sociological / social work human that I am. And I'm going to highlight Maslow's hierarchy of needs as a base for depicting what formerly incarcerated students may need to sustain themselves in the academy. For any student to be successful, incarceration experience or not, their physiological needs must be met. So that first foundation, the real concrete reinforcing this triangle, where, are they able to breathe? Are they healthy? I know healthy is on the next, safe and security, but let's be real. Mental health and physical health is a physiological need. Do they have clothing? Do they have food? Do they have shelter? Without knowing where you're going to sleep or knowing how you're going to access the aforementioned, how is anyone to be sustainable in any pursuit? Advocating for friendlier housing policies on campus, creating or accessing emergency funds that also exist on campus, which I know a lot already are there. Also making transportation more accessible and readily available will really, really ensure that this population gets to campus and is able to succeed. Now, as the going up, safety and security, understanding that prison is inherently traumatic. It functions by rules, norms, and mores that defy our norms here in the free world. Folks who navigate that world and survive need support to heal from their experiences. Although they are inherently resilient, and I often advocate for folks to have a strength-based approach and kind of utilize that resiliency, hone in on it, and remind people that they can do it. Use a strength-based model, encourage that resilience throughout campus by making your campus a welcoming and healing environment instead of recreating the punitive environment our students just came from. Think about ways we already discussed supporting formerly incarcerated students. That support may, in my experience, mostly comes from peers and other affinity spaces. Therapy and group therapy are essential. So I also, at the end of this presentation, again, have linked other campus-based resources and models that exist throughout the United States to kind of actualize what I'm putting into words right now. Employment. I'm currently working on finding folks employment right now. Please do not pigeonhole students into certain fields. I see this happen all the time. But meet the student where they are and leverage similar workforce development outlets that you would for any other student. Utilize that licensing guide that I had on the screen before. Formerly incarcerated students are parents too, especially formerly incarcerated women. How do we support students with incarceration experience or without foster healthy relationships with students, with partners, with friends, with supervisors? That's also something that I think is very important. There is push on campus to teach our students that in general and end sexual violence. Let's make sure that everybody is incorporated in that dialogue. I think that all formerly incarcerated or not students can better learn how to communicate, engage with loved ones, and create social capital to sustain our lives. Like I said before, stigmas, stereotypes, assumptions can trigger people, lower self-esteem and confidence. And like we all know, if you're treated like crap, you start to think you're crap. So let's be mindful of how we address and counsel students so that they can reach self-actualization. More that we provide foundationally, the more students will thrive as they rise through the triangle. So I know this presentation is largely about what happens when students come home, but I just wanted to highlight some of the work that is being done in correctional facilities across the state. SUNY has grown to become the largest provider of college and prison programs in New York, with 20 campuses serving over 1,000 students across 30 state prisons by fall 2024. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention that those numbers are growing by the day. Because of the return of Pell, campuses couldn't afford to provide this opportunity, and not just Pell and TAP, campuses can afford to provide this opportunity in ways in which they could not before. So I was just speaking to my colleague at Jamestown and hearing how his program is growing. And I'm so grateful that folks and campuses are able to provide more of the incarcerated population with this resource, with access to higher education. So I don't want to let this 1,000 number of students depict the amount of humans in the community who are potential students, but understand that there are students who are coming to finish their degrees despite where they return to. So, as you could see, our community, shout out to my community colleges, love and appreciate you. You all are the foundation in providing the breadth of this work and opportunity across the state. And you know what? Shout out to my R1 universities and also state institutions, because you are providing the bachelor's degrees that were not offered before. And again, special shout out to SUNY Potsdam for being the first in our SUNY family to offer and award students who are incarcerated at Riverview Correctional Facility with that BA in sociology. Okay. And I know I'm going to wrap up a little bit because I know there's going to be a lot of questions, but before I forget, I just wanted to remind folks that this is the beautiful team that I work on. And please, please, please reach out to any of us, our executive director, and we are led by Rachel Sander. She is really, when I want to say, I don't know, the oracle of college and prison in our state. She has led our New York State consortium. She has worked in women's prisons, also in max and mediums across the state. And we're really, really grateful to be led by such a fervent leader. Jose Pineda as well is a passionate and rather informed human in terms of supporting faculty training and community engagement. He's worked so well with campuses to really educate and humanize this experience and effort to create more opportunities for folks who are formerly incarcerated. I'm not going to talk about this Klarisse human because you already heard from her. And so we have Doug Matthews, who is coordinating all our operations, Tom Gaze, who's been within the SUNY family for many years, who charges and heads up our research efforts, Rebecca Grace, who does so much legwork in terms of all that budgeting, data management, all that hard stuff that makes my eyes cross. Katie Zuber and Paul Wilner also help on the research side. And I just really want to highlight very quickly, I think that I get really upset and I feel like it's kind of disingenuous when people come and say do this thing, do that, that'll work, that should be cheap. Okay. That's not fair. So what I really wanted to do was to give examples of programs around the country and also highlight the baby steps that we can take, the things that, you know, we're going to Home Depot and we're buying the materials to build where we need to go. And so these resources at the bottom of your screen are all opportunities around our country that highlight and showcase campus-based reentry programs that have been highly successful. And I'm going to click back really quick. The headline of this slide, Ways You Can Support and Advocate for Formerly Incarcerated Students, is an actual report that does what I say. There, it says, okay, I understand you might not have the resources, so what is the bare minimum we can do for these students with these experiences, all the way into, okay, this is how you advocate for specific programming on campus and how you hire a specific director to head that programming that's specific to folks who are returning from incarceration. And after that, I think I'm done and ready to take questions. Oh, how do I stop sharing? Oh, stop share. Oh my God, I'm so close to the screen. Let me go into this chat.
Thank you, Klarisse. We don't currently have any
Oh.
questions, so let's encourage them. I wrote a question and I can't put it in the Q&A, but so I'll get you started. Do you, in the programs that are currently running, are reentry folks following like a typical 2-year or 4-year path where they want to get an associate's or a bachelor's degree, or are they going into the non-credit side, the workforce, or is it a combination of both things?
Jen, that's a great question. It is a combination of all things. So I've seen, okay, so I'll give some like case studies recently. So the person that I talked about earlier who, he left Green Correctional Facility with his associate's degree, came out into the community, and he does want to continue his education, but he was having a really hard time finding employment. So like with the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we can't get him back into school until he can be stable in the community where he's at. If he's worrying about like how he's going to feed himself or how he's going to afford rent or whatnot, then he doesn't afford the opportunity right now to go back to school. So, you know, we counseled him through his needs of where he was at right now. We were able to actually get him employment at an agency. He's been working for a local homeless services housing agency, which is in alignment with his career goals. Like he's interested in the social work and the sociology work. So we were able to say, hey, human student, where are you now and what do you need? Okay, so this is what you need. So we were able to not just get him employment, but also to get him an employment in his field of work that he is interested in pursuing. So depending on where students leave or when students leave incarceration, they could have already completed an associate's degree. They could have completed an associate's degree and be accruing credits because the only program offered at the facility that they are at is an associate's degree. We also have students now, because of Potsdam being up and running, that are actually achieving their associate's degrees and have the opportunity to elect to transfer to a Riverview Correctional Facility. So move correctional facilities, move prisons so that they can continue to their bachelor's degree. You know, that choice isn't an easy one to make. If you are from downstate, and 87 right there. And so staying at a downstate facility, because if you have family close to you, might be more supportive than going to Riverview. I don't know if y'all know where Riverview is the North Country. St. Lawrence River is up there. So you're closer to Canada. But with all these other campuses, these 4-year programs starting, now incarcerated students might have the opportunity to move facilities closer to home. So again, it's the run of the gamut. We have folks who might not achieve even their associate's degree before they go home. We have students that achieve their associate's degree and might accrue more credits and wait till release to re-engage with higher education. And now we have students who are leaving with bachelor's degrees, and we hope to provide more and more opportunities. We also hope to provide more vocational opportunities, but that is under and in the works and on the way.
Okay, great. Thank you. Do you have a couple of questions? In the Q&A, Jack is asking, are the programs that exist ones specifically designed for re-entering students, or are they programs that are for re-entering students as well as other students? I'm guessing that that is in reference to the programs that are running in the prisons, that they come out with a degree. Is it a special program, or is it something that students that are outside of the justice system also participating in?
Oh yeah, so it's the exact same program that's on campus, brought into the facility. So even if students, I've seen this happen with North Country Community College, if a student, and if anybody needs to correct me from North Country, if you're on the line, please do. But I've seen students be released mid-semester and are able to engage like in an online course and be able to continue seamlessly because of the fact that they were enrolled in a course that was offered in the campus or online at the same time that that same course was offered at the facility. It's rare, it's unique, but it does happen. But I just want to be clear, yes, our students that are incarcerated are getting the exact same academic programming that our students that are on our free world campuses are. It's the same level of rigor they have to go through. And if anything, it's different because they don't have access to technology. I find that my students do the reading. My students do the whole reading, which is very different than if I were adjuncting at UAlbany or Hudson Valley. It just is, it's different by nature. So yes, I hope that answers that question.
Awesome.
And then,
okay, yeah,
oh,
I
sorry.
said, yeah, I was gonna say, we do have a couple more. Jen is asking, is there a need for academic support for currently incarcerated students? Are there programs that provide this?
That's a beautiful question. So the best way that I could answer that question is that each campus, like any other way, each campus have unique needs and each campus have varying resources. Okay. So that being said, depending on where the student is incarcerated and that campus partnership, either that campus themselves is completely doing all the administrative work, or that campus may work with a partner. And most of those partners are either like a private non-for-profit an outside non-for-profit or another institution. Let me give you an example. If anyone from Cayuga County Community College is on here, shout out to you all. Cayuga works with Cornell. Cornell University actually has this program called Cornell Prison Education Program that partners with a community college, and Cornell kind of oversees the academic, that administrative work within the facility. And they might provide, and know for a fact that Cornell provides a whole bunch of tutors and whatnot, and some other extracurricular activities. But not every campus has that support. Not every campus has that level of resources, or let's just be honest, that high of a budget. So in terms of academic support, it really depends on the campus and what partnerships they have. I am a fervent believer that our students could use as much support as possible. And I'm always encouraging, I hate to be like this, I'm always encouraging campuses to think creatively and also utilize our office, because I totally understand that we all have different touch points with incarceration and those who have been incarcerated or not. And I want to educate and empower and also like hold hard conversations so that we all can figure out how we can fill these gaps in resources for our students who are on the inside and as they are coming home. Okay. So with that being said, we do not have a lot of support when it comes to like the pre-college or remedial course loads, which makes me upset, because already a lot of students or humans who are incarcerated have You can literally Google this online. There's like a 15 or 20% lower literacy rate. So we're already dealing with the population that has been underserved for quite some time. And then there is a New York State law, there's a New York State law that those who do not come into incarceration with a high school equivalency must take high school classes when they're in there to take the GED, or it used to be the task. That being said, the Department of Corrections is like a school district in itself. And so the humans who teach in those classes, it's very limited curriculum, and they don't have that much outside support too. We are really, really trying to be creative of how we bring in more support and also bring in more technology. But that is a huge steeple in this world, and not to say across the nation, but in New York State, it is difficult. And I completely understand, the Department of Corrections' #1 focus is security. Okay, so sometimes we have like very conflicting missions due to like look at higher education, then you look at the Department of Corrections. So, but they've been a great partner. We both have, their commissioner and our chancellor both serve New York State and the governor. So it has been, I've seen so many more doors open in the last few years than I have in a long time, and I'm really grateful for that. I think my laptop might be dying.
Let's hope not, because we have
Yeah,
a lot
let's
of
hope
questions left.
Okay, if
there's,
anything, Lolly is right next to me, and we could
Okay, perfect.
switch and flop out. So
Okay.
I apologize for that.
No, that's okay. Amanda is asking or commenting too. I noticed that the degrees offered from each program was a little limited. What are the barriers to increasing students' options, and how can we support this? And then Marianne's also asking how many curriculum choices are offered. So it's kind of a similar question.
Thank you both, Amanda and Marianne, because this is something that worries me nearly every day, is the lack of choice and opportunity our students have. I'm going to be very frank that the programs that are offered are because they have the least amount of either technology attachments to them or internship attachments to them. So it's extremely limited. In 2024, a lot of curriculums, and also like, let's think about the hard sciences as well. Like, you need a lab. That is really difficult. Even if we do, some programs across the country have these really, really creative, and even across our state have really creative technology-based simulations. I was looking for the word simulation in my brain. Simulation labs, and we just don't have that opportunity with us with the lack of technology that we have now. It's really unfortunate that the programs that are offered are because of ease and not by choice. And I would be remiss if I didn't say that out loud. I'm not even going to sugarcoat that. And how many curriculum choices are, and how can we support this? In response to that, I think it's like being advocates, advocating to our campuses, advocating in general, to the state, like I'm not allowed to say that, but to the world in general about the needs of these students, and showcasing examples of, what are they called? Of success, like of successful programs, of successful facilities. I really do encourage folks to look at that Bard prison documentary. I apologize. Oh, wait, that's where I got stuck. Okay, here.
Hold on.
Here
Let
I
me
am. I
switch you
apologize
really
about that.
quick. Hold on.
But I really do encourage folks to watch the Bard prison documentary, because it really, first of all, Bard has been doing this work for a number of years I think since like 2001, 2002, even without public dollars. So that being said, they've been in this game for a long time, and they've created some really, really strong partnerships with not just local facilities, but with the Department of Corrections as well. And they've been able to offer some robust and diverse programming and courses offered within the facilities that they have programming in. So that's to say, why can't we do that here? I think it takes a lot of strong relationships. And in my world, taken me a long time to learn that it's like small gains create big change. So like small little wins, building more trust. Also, I really like, I think about our campuses as stewards for this work. A lot of our rural campuses are in hubs of a lot of correctional facilities, a lot of prisons. A lot of prisons are the foundation of economic base for a lot of our regions in New York State. And I know a lot of campuses have brothers and sisters and loved ones who work in these facilities. I also know a lot of campuses have brothers and sisters and humans who are incarcerated in these facilities. How can we use our human stories and experiences to educate our communities and really empower folks to try out something new, to offer something, to pilot? Yeah. So I hope that I answered that question.
Great. We have a couple questions in the Q&A. I don't know if you can see that.
I was talking to Reed before this call. So I think that that's really funny.
Nicole is
We
asking.
talked about reentry for a long time. My
Yeah.
CJ students at HVCC love the Yes. Also, Hudson Valley has always been an amazing campus because of our proximity. Well, because of being in Troy and being in Albany as a steward and a champion for this program in our programming, and always thinking about how that campus can be interwoven into our thread a little closely. Are there opportunities for incarcerated students to be become classmates with non-incarcerated students? Yes. I see this happen across the state in various ways. The longstanding program that I will have to advocate for first is Inside Out. So there is a program, Inside Out, I think, is out of Philadelphia. You can just Google Inside Out programming. And that program itself, which is separate from, I think, any institution of higher education, serves as a trainer and an advocate for bringing students from the Free World campus into the correctional facilities to take classes at the same time, like be duly enrolled in the same course, 2 different campuses. And I encourage that. I think, though, it's really difficult because in New York State, in order to be a volunteer, although I go into facilities all the time, I'm a volunteer under the guise of the Department of Corrections. It's difficult in New York State because you have to be 21. I do think it would be really cool to offer more seminars and even like upper level graduate courses that could be just for credit for students, obviously non-matriculated, because that would also give both students more, to be honest with you, like-minded ages, to our currently incarcerated students do run the gamut of age from being as young as 21, I believe, 20 or so, to the oldest student I think we've had is in their 60s or 70s. And that is reflective of even the class that I teach right now. My youngest student is 23, 22. My oldest student is 66, I believe. So I always encourage folks to think more globally about how we can share these experiences with our students on campus as well. Students on campus are often our strongest allies and loudest cheerleaders. If not, do you think that would help or hinder those students to reenter? I think it helps. I think it helps because, I was talking to Reed about this earlier, is that, when humans are incarcerated, and I aforementioned this as well, is that you learn a completely different set of norms and mores that are sustainable within that system, but really are not within our free community. Not just that, but it's punitive. Like, everybody knows this. I'm not going to say that. It's a punitive system in New York, and it's a punitive system around our country. And being punitive, it's often punishing. And when that happens, humans tend to start seeing themselves as whatever people are calling them, whatever people are saying that they are. It limits self-esteem in a way that I think there needs to be a lot of intentional work when folks come outside to rebuild. So I think that when students see their humanity via somebody else. I think that's the best way sometimes to remind ourselves of like, oh no, I'm human, I am flesh, I am here, and I am capable, is when people tell people that. So I do think that, you know, having students meet other students, no matter where they are, of various life experiences only helps us all. And it really enriches our community. Oh, thank you, Valerie. Sorry, I just saw that. I just wanted to make sure that I answered all of those questions, and Spage or S Page, I'm sorry. I really, really appreciated that question.
Did you see the,
Oh, Valia has one in the Q&A that I
Yeah.
missed. So it's in the, if you, oh my gosh, there's another Q&A. Wait, sorry. Hold on. Sorry, Lolly is gonna help me. I'm not the best at technology. Oh my goodness. Okay, thank you, Lavia. Many of the degrees offered are in liberal arts associates. Have you noticed any trends toward any that the students? Okay, so this great question. Honestly, truly, I don't know. This could be a study in itself, but I have a ton of students who come out and end up pursuing the social science and social work field. I like off the top of my head, you know, I'll go back in time really quick and say that I first had a touch point with this work in 2015 when I was the academic coordinator for college and pre-college programming at Green Correctional, which is in Coxsackie. At that time, our students were non-matriculated Siena College students, and I was in those first conversations. Again, I'm going to shout out to Columbia Greene County with Carol Dofer, the time to get the community college into the facility there and there now, and now we confer degrees. But I have had students leave that programming and gone to Columbia, gone to Hunter, gone to NYU, moved on to all these different institutions, and a lot of them were for social work programs. But I just had a couple of students leave, and I think one of them is at SUNY New Paltz and is pursuing environmental science. I've had students leave and pursue computer science. I had a student leave and teach me about AI. I was in the dark and they're like, no, miss, you need to stop. You need to know about this before it knows about you. And so that's why I really, really, really advocate for folks to not pigeonhole. I know I'm a social worker, so I was taught this, but you know, motivational interviewing, I think, is really, really key in this world, because you never know who is on the inside of that person and who can come out and what they can do in our communities, in our society, in our world. I've had students come out and be like amazing advocates, go to law, one's at Yale Law now. The options are endless, and that's why I think I appreciate the question, Lalia. And I remember in the question about choice and degree offerings, because it's so limited. And I think that that's why reentry is, you know, the push for reentry is not just necessary, but it could really, really move the dial for a lot of people's lives. Like the first thing I said, I truly agree. I mean, believe in is that, like, you know, the ripple of education doesn't stop with that first rock and that first touch of water, but it continues to touch everybody that human touches along the way. Look at what I just shared with all of y'all today. So what can we share with other people? And I think that that's making sure that that's enough of my pontificating for now on that note. Thank you. Please do not hesitate to reach out to. I cannot stress that. Our office is so passionate and so energized, and we really, really are trying to build and reinforce this system of access to higher education in prison, and for those who are coming home to the communities in a way that it's systematic. Not just like, I don't want to deal with one person's problem, but I want to help deal with everybody's problem in an equitable way. So thank you all. Happy Friday. Enjoy your weekend.
Thank you, Klarisse. That was excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Klarisse, for such a fantastic presentation. Outstanding.
Thank you, Cheryl. Oh, okay. Thank you, Cheryl, so much. Sorry, I couldn't hear anything for a second, but I read your lips, so I appreciate it.
No worries. Oh, was I muted? Oh, wow.
No, you weren't muted.
Okay, got
Yeah,
it.
the computer was.
Thank you all for joining us, and I hope you will join our next one 2 weeks away.